Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. Human societies can be defined by any of several things. There is certainly the basic fact that they are made of people living together in some sort of cohesive manner. Then there are elements of culture, such as language, commonly held knowledge, and customs. A third component is found in creative developments, such as artistic works, literature, or inventions. Finally, there are the more elusive and loosely bound factors such as emotional habits or spiritual practices. What holds the entire package together is the X factor, the large and largely undefined arena known as beliefs. These and a few other things that might vary from society to society are the ingredients of the social network that binds us together in groups. But there is one other element that is every bit as universal as those already mentioned. As far as we can tell, every single society in human history has had this element. It serves as a kind of glue that makes sure things don't fall apart when the inevitable problems rise up in any society. These problems are always very human. They may arise from clashes among the people involved over some of the other elements. But more often than not, they arise when individuals or groups within the society simply don't get along or don't see things eye to eye. For these problems, societies have created a system to smooth things over and make sure they don't get too out of hand. We refer to this system by the well-known and universally understood term, laws. Laws are the rules that any society needs in order to function. They keep people in line within the acceptable bounds that the society has somehow determined should be there. There is nothing divinely ordained about these rules. They are simply the way things developed in a society as a result of practices, needs, and resources. One society's rules might strike the members of another as ridiculous or even barbaric. But many of the rules are fairly universal among societies, such as the prohibitions against killing or stealing. Laws, of course, can change as time and evolution demands. Laws become antiquated and need to be eliminated over the course of the history of a people. The ability of laws to change to fit the situation is as essential to a society as is the stability and firmness of the laws when change is not called for. Sometimes these changes can be accomplished with the mere stroke of a pen, but at other times they may require something more drastic, like a revolution or a general breakdown of things. A healthy society is one in which the law changes can happen smoothly and effectively, all to meet the needs of the times. An unhealthy one is characterized by the opposite. They require complete overthrow and destruction and are rarely replaced by the healthy variety. But the stability of the laws is also absolutely essential for a healthy society. A society without firm laws is a recipe for chaos and anarchy. The breakdown of a legal system or a gradual trend to disregard its guidelines is probably the surest barometer to a society falling apart. This has happened many times throughout history, and it almost always results in disaster. Religions have historically been one of the prime factors in the stability of a society's laws. When there is a common belief system and an accepted way of doing things, they tend to go according to plan. When there isn't, and when beliefs go every which way, they don't. The Bible contains one of the classic ancient systems of laws. There are so many laws in the Bible that it is almost impossible to keep track of them. On top of that, the laws occasionally seem to change slightly. This confusion is one of the primary areas of Jewish commentary on the Bible. Getting the laws to remain consistent or figuring out how they may have changed in some way is a contentious but essential element of Judaism and Jewish law. It is an evolving system that is anchored in the firmest of anchors, the Ten Commandments. This week's Parsha is called Yitro. It is one of the handful of Parshas named after a person. In this case, Yitro, or Jethro, is the honoree. He was the father-in-law of Moshe, and he reappears in the story rather suddenly right at the beginning of the Parsha. It isn't clear why he shows up out of the blue following the Exodus and the initial trials and tribulations in the wilderness. The only reason the text seems to give for his appearance is that he is bringing back Moshe's wife Tzipporah and her two sons who had been sent away at some uncertain time in the past, presumably prior to the events leading to the Exodus. Whatever the reason, his presence immediately sets things in the direction of a legal system. Yitro watches the unorganized manner in which Moshe guides this massive group of people wandering around the wilderness, and immediately suggests to him that he needs a more structured way of doing things. He tells Moshe that he must appoint subordinates to handle the running of the society on many levels of size. These people would administer the law as it was told to them. The laws themselves would have to be clarified and defined so that judgment on a local level could be accomplished. By sharing the burden of enforcing the laws, things will work out along the manner that God had foreseen. When this advice is wholeheartedly taken, the path is set for the next great step in the Israelite society. This was the central event of the Parsha and one of the most important in the entire Bible, and for that matter, in the history of the world. This, of course, was the giving of the Ten Commandments. There was a rather long build-up to the actual event. It involved a lot of advanced preparation as the nation was encamped around Mount Sinai. There was a certain amount of ritual purification and a lot of rules about where the Israelites could or couldn't be when the actual event started happening. The boundaries had to be set and strictly abided by. Any breakdown of the boundaries would result in death by some mysterious form of stoning. There would be trumpets sounded along with the blowing of ram's horns. There was thunder and lightning accompanying the arrangements. The people were terrified, for they were about to witness what had never been seen before by human beings and would never be seen again. They were situated at the foot of the mountain, watching transfixed as Moshe went up and down. The mountain itself seemed to tremble. God warns Moshe to make sure that the people cannot ascend the mountain at any time. Moshe responds that this has already been taken care of, but God says to him that he must go down again and remind them to not breach the boundaries. Only then could he ascend again to receive the law alone. The text seems to state that Moshe was down at the foot of the mountain when God spoke the actual words. This confusing and surprising statement is right there in the text, but it is contradicted by several other statements elsewhere in the Torah that clearly have Moshe at the summit of the mountain to receive the law. There is no solid resolution of this problem, as it seems like he was in both places. Whatever the case, the main event of the Parsha is the actual reciting of the Ten Commandments in all their glory. A surprising thing about the Ten Commandments is that they are never referred to as such anywhere in the Bible, either here or elsewhere. There are 3 other references in which they are called the 10 things or 10 words, but never 10 commandments. Jewish tradition refers to them as 10 statements or 10 utterances. Even though these 10 whatevers are among the best known collection of words in all of human history, it is a bit unclear what exactly makes up the individual 10 things. On almost every depiction of the famous tablets throughout history, they are listed in a specific order, 5 on each side, and usually depicted with the opening word of the individual utterance. Jewish tradition is somewhat divided as to what qualifies as a commandment. For instance, the famous opening statement, "I am Hashem your God who took you out of the land of Egypt from the situation of slavery," is sometimes not counted as a commandment. The fact is that it isn't clear what the commandment actually is in this statement. But assuming we can sort that out, the 10 commandments have come to us, first to the Israelites, and then to the Jews, and then to the rest of the world, as the definitive statement of the most basic laws a God-oriented society must have. The basic belief in God must be there, as are the various prohibitions on worshiping anything other than God. These are classically reckoned as the first 2 commandments. Then there is a prohibition against taking God's name in vain. This is followed by a commandment to remember the day of Shabbat and to sanctify it. This ordered the society along a very firm structure of time, 6 days of work and 1 of rest. The last 6 commandments include honoring parents, prohibitions against murder, adultery, stealing, lying, and coveting. That's basically it. This basic system of social and religious laws has never really been improved upon in the subsequent 3,000 years of progress. Of course, there have been many expansions of these laws and countless additions to make them fit into any society. Some commandments have largely been ignored or forgotten, such as the keeping of Shabbat. Others have been limited in scope, such as coveting or honoring parents. But this general formula, in one form or another, has somehow broken through the boundaries of time and space and found a place in virtually every society that has ever existed. Where would we be without the 10 Commandments? Would we have nothing but chaos and barbarity, the telltale signs of any society without laws? While most societies had little to no knowledge of the Bible and this event, they all somehow figured out parts of this remarkable system of laws and applied it to their situation. This was the single time in human history that these basic laws were described as being given by no less than God. Perhaps that voice did resound out beyond those artificial boundaries and penetrated into the minds of all people. Perhaps everybody heard these words in one form or another, at one time or another, and realized that this is the way things have to be. While the words described here apply to the unique situation of the Israelites and their successors, the Jews, they also find a place in every society and in every human being. These are the laws that we need in order to be human beings. That voice echoes until today, whether we choose to listen to it or not. It is the voice of God at Mount Sinai. Shabbat Shalom.